Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
You say a competitive prayer?
Yeah, you were referring to, pray you under the church,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's
Yes, yes, yes.
right. I mean, I
Yes.
think of that as competitive prayer at that point, right? So, welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Sandra Smith. Sandra, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, yes. Thank you again, once again, for allowing me to be here. I am Sandra A. Smith.
There
They,
you go.
I like when people say, "What's up, Sandra?" And I'll be like,
What's up?
"Hey." So
Is this
yeah,
on stage? Is this on stage?
yes, when I introduced myself, and I used to do a live show, me and my lead actress, Elise Hollywood Evans, and whenever I would come on, I was like, "I'm Sandra A," and like when people see me now, they'd be like, "What's up, Sandra A?"
There you go. There you
You got
go.
to start a little trend, yeah, start a little
That's
something.
right. That's
But
right.
yes, I am a Indie award-winning filmmaker. Sometimes I just drop the Indie and just say award-winning filmmaker because when you're being blessed to win so many awards for your creative work, because it's good to see it on paper, but then when you see it on a silver screen, you be like, "What? It's my story that was in my head. Now I can see it." So it is such a blessing to be able to win awards for my work in film festivals, to be recognized in the Philippines for my work because they share my work there. In India, I won for Best Short Film, in the India Karnataka Film Festival and also in the Bangkok Film Festival. So I'm thankful for my work being recognized in other countries besides the USA. I get a lot of recognition right here in the Bay Area where I'm at doing films. I do a lot of inspirational films, awareness films, comedic drama. I try to do a little bit of everything because I'm testing the waters to see exactly where my audience at. And I feel my audience is more on the inspirational side. So I do a lot of movies like that. I have several short films out, documentaries I have done. Music videos, commercials, just kind of tapping into all areas when it comes to filming. I work with a lot of amazing filmmakers here in the Bay Area as well. I'm in three TV series. One that we just had the launching of the premiere at Tommy T's is called The Hodges, and it's based on this comedian, because we're talking about comedians. We're talking
Right.
yes, it's based on this comedian coming up out of the Bay Area. He's an amazing comedian. And it's just telling a life story of how comedians, like we're talking about here, from comic to comedians, and how that transition is when it comes to family, friends, and traveling, and all the things that goes with the comedian life. So it is such a blessing to be part of the Hodges. I played the mother of Mario Hodge in the sitcom The Hodges. And of course, I'm in an inspirational TV series called The Clown in the Prayer Closet, and I play Miss Tanya. And Miss Tanya, she's like this sassy, been there, done that, lived that, but now she's kind of like more of giving her life to the Lord after living that lifestyle. So Miss Tanya have a lot of wisdom for the young women that's coming up, just in the world, just giving that great wisdom and knowledge, and just really teaching young women how to be women instead of little thoughts out there.
Very good. Very cool. So you ready to
Yes.
get started? Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me.
Oh yes, let's do it, man. Let's
All
get
right.
into it.
All right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I defined the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So,
Mhm.
Sandra, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
Yes, I would totally agree. And the reason why is um, Steve Harvey. I'm going to use him as an example. Steve Harvey, I like to listen. He's a very inspirational person right about now. But he was talking about his life, like starting as a comedian, and he was saying that he used to write jokes for this comedian, this comic comedian, and he was saying that one of his friends was telling him, "Man, you should just go out to the comedy show and do all this comedy yourself. You writing, your jokes are really funny. You should go out there." And he was like, "Nah, I'm not really a comic. I'm not a comedian. I don't do that. So he got up the nerves to really do it. His friend talked him into it, and he went and he was funny, and he didn't realize that he was just really funny. So when he was leaving the comedy show, he was crying. The girl was like, "Well, what you crying for?" And he was like, "I know what I want to do now. Know what I want to do. I
So
want to
you're
be a
saying
comedian."
he was working as a comic, but for a comedian, and then he discovered himself to be a comedian. Is that right?
Yes, he was writing
All right.
jokes. Yes, he was writing
Right, right.
jokes for other comedian, and he didn't really think that he was funny,
Right. Well,
but
he had to be funny to write good jokes, right? So he's definitely
right.
fun. So that would be the comic. That's another example of what a comic could be, someone writing for someone else.
Right, exactly. Then you realize that, hey, I can do my own jokes. I'm funny, but of course, it's all about inspiration and someone saying, "Hey, why don't you try to do this yourself? Because your jokes are funny. Why don't you do
Right.
your own jokes?" And that's how it all came about to him. He went to work and quit his job. He was kind of rough in the beginning, but look at him now.
Yeah. All right. Ready for the first question?
Yes. Oh,
All
I thought
right.
there was the
So
first one.
that was the first. Well, that was a question, but the first question is about the role of persona in comedy. So,
Mm.
how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
Mm. I want to say 50-50, because as a comedian, they like to switch into different characters. They probably play, let's say, the mother from the church. They'll start acting like Mother Jones from the church. Like, "Oh, man, you see Mother Jones? She was up there shouting and hooping and hollering, man. I tell you, when you go to them churches, you better watch out for them praying mother because they'll come and pray you under the church. Some
Huh.
crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
They'll kind of switch, and then they'll have the character, the voice of Mother Jones. They'll start talking like her, and then and I will go to some of the comedians that does movies, and they play these different characters. They have to have this different voice, like I'm gonna say Tyler Perry. I love Tyler Perry, and also Eddie Murphy. They play all these different characters, so they have to become these different characters. But when they're these characters, they're funny as well. So you can relate to, the characters that they're playing as well as them being a comedian on stage because they're funny. If you see them performing on stage and they are hilarious, and then you go and see them in a movie, like I know I'm gonna go see them because they're gonna be hilarious. On stage they're hilarious. And then if they're playing all these different major characters, it's like, oh my God, they are hilarious when they can switch into different characters. So I think it's probably about 50-50 to me. They can transform into these different character voices and be a different person and still make you laugh.
All right. Earlier, you mentioned comedy drama. So, are you alluding that perhaps competitive prayer is a dramatic part of comedy?
You say a competitive prayer?
Yeah, you were referring to pray you under the church,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's
Yes, yes, yes.
right. I mean, I
Yes.
think of that as competitive prayer at that point, right? So,
Yes, I
is
mean,
that
you're
like
right, right. When comedians, they would kind of throw that out there, of like how some let's say mothers or sisters in church, how they can just pray you here and pray you out of that situation, and then other like, yeah, well, sister so and so, she can definitely pray a double prayer you out of that situation because she got them unshakable prayers. She can move mountains. So yeah, I guess what you are saying in that way, yeah, it can be a little competitive when they're comparing one mother to a sister in church and how powerful their prayers are in a funny way, in a
now is
funny
that
way.
a comedy drama or is that just comedy or just drama?
Oh God, that's comedy drama right there.
Just checking. I'm trying to find examples of the distinct scenarios where comedy drama applies, and it sounds
Oh,
like this
that
is
is
one of them.
definitely comedy drama.
So does authenticity matter, or is illusion part of the magic?
I think both, because as a comedian is an art to the way you deliver your comedy to make
Mhm.
your audience laugh and to be engaged. So yeah, I definitely think yeah both.
All right, so punching up versus punching down.
Ooh.
Where do comics versus comedians stand on this? So let me put it in some historical context.
Hmm.
Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Is he doing this to be funny?
That's the question. Why? Well, I mean, he just killed somebody, so what's the goal?
Yes, maybe in that era, maybe it was funny because maybe that was just what they do. But it all depends on how you deliver that joke. Okay, it all depends because some people can deliver a joke in a funny way, and then some people can deliver in a way in the audience be like, I
Yeah, I
don't think
think
that was funny. I don't think,
no, exactly. Perhaps it's the epitome of the comedy drama when you're actually end the joke by killing somebody,
right,
right? So that's
right,
the
right. Like, I don't know,
now.
killing.
Now, is that punching up or is that punching down?
Um, would that be considered punching down if you're killing someone
It's
or
a complicated scenario. It's also
yeah,
very hypothetical, but
it
yeah,
is.
would that be punching up or punching down?
I guess it all depends once again on how you delivered that joke. It can be a funny punch up or it could be a negative punch down, like killing someone for to be a comedian. Is that really funny? Hmm.
Yeah, again, this is a very, very theoretical historical reference here. So
Right,
just
exactly. But I'm quite sure at that time, everyone was probably cracking up because it's a joke. It's a joke. And however way, he delivered that joke. But then again, it all depends on how the joke was delivered. Could it be a ha ha he he moment? Could have been like, oh my God, no.
yeah, exactly. So is the audience agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
Um, that's a tough one. Ah, you got me there. Um, Once again, it depends, how funny it was. Maybe the audience would give the comedian permission, and on the other hand, maybe not. It all depends,
Okay.
and that's wow, that's a tough one. I guess if it's really hilarious and the joke was funny and how he did it, and maybe it's a ha ha he he moment. That's a tough.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So cultural translation of comedy. How do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Ooh, God, that's a good one. I guess you would have to really as a comedian, you would want to have your team to maybe do research on what comes across to other audience in different countries. Because of course, here in the U.S., a comedian can probably basically talk about everything without offending anyone in a certain different class, and it'll be funny because that's kind of pushing the bar and kind of pushing the envelope there when you step into that arena. But then when you're in a different country, it may not fly as well. So you might want to kind of do your research and see what's funny and what's not and what will go and what wouldn't go because you don't want to go there and offend a different culture when you don't know anything about that culture. So you want to know at least a little bit about that culture because I'm gonna go back to a comedian, Kevin Hart.
Hmm.
I love Kevin Hart. He's just hilarious, little short self. But he talks about going to all these other different countries, performing and how the difference is when it comes to delivering um, your lines to different culture of people, and he shows all these, like one of his comedy shows, he shows where all these different countries he have been to, and they would interview the audience, people that have went to the shows, and he went to, oh my God, Japan, China, he's went to Singapore, and all these different people, these countries, and you're having these people that can relate to his comedy, and I'm taking that maybe before he went to these countries, maybe his team kind of did his research, or even before he's going to that country, he's blowing up here in the US. And of course, the social media internet is like a way to really push and promote your stuff out there.
Beady, beady,
And
beady,
as he's
beady.
coming up, people probably on YouTube like, oh, let me check out this comedian. Like, wow, he's funny. And you can be from another country, and you're checking
Mhm.
out, just surfing YouTube, and you run across certain content and be like, oh, and you just grabs your attention and watch it. And it can be with the same with comedians. And I think that's how they kind of get a little well known in these other countries, because people have watched their content on YouTube, which is like a big platform besides the others. So yeah, I think you
Sure.
should really kind of check out the scene before you go there.
So would you say that comics are more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
I would say both. I would say both because, like you said, a comic can be anyone, right? I can be a
Yeah,
comic, you can be a comic, and comics also can dress in costume where they're created characters, right?
absolutely. But so can a comedian, but we're very important that the comic is writing and telling jokes, right? They're working, they're doing stuff.
Right. But isn't a comedian writing and telling jokes as well?
He is, but he's also, or she is a funny person. So they've internalized it, personified it as well. So the comic may not personify, it may just be external. Like I wear this stuff, I'm just a comic. I could be telling jokes, but not necessarily a comedian. But
Right.
once it's on the inside, only on the inside, that's the comedian.
Okay. Okay.
That's my definition.
Uh, Okay. I can relate to yours as well. Okay. So, give me that question again.
Huh. So are comics more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
Comedians are universal. I mean, I think comedians are more universal because they're traveling all over. They're traveling all over. They're telling jokes. They're engaging with their audience. Whereas a comic, they may just be just in one place. Like for instance, okay, Ronald McDonald's. Okay, he wears a costume. He may not tell funny jokes, but he's all over. Okay, or maybe like a Barney or something. Well, then he'd be all over because he's on television. Huh.
Well, of course, when you can't really personify those characters because there's no inside, there's no internal, right? They are very archetypal,
That's true. That's true.
right?
So I would
So I
say
would,
both. I would say both can be universal. I would say both. It all depends on how far that comic want to take their jokes. But of course, a comedian is universal because he's traveling all over and he's doing a lot of different things. Whereas the comic would do the same as well, but it all depends on how far the comic will push their joke.
all right. So crowd work versus crafted work. So if comics riff like influencers in the comments section and comedians perform like in reaction videos, where is the sweet spot?
Ooh, you got me in a hot one again. Oh gosh. And you said audience. Give me that question again. I'm
Yeah, if
thinking too hard on that one.
so I would argue that comics riff more, they do more crowd work, and comedians perform more crafted work. Would you agree?
Yes, 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 yes.
So
I
where is the sweet spot between the two?
I think the sweet spot between the two is they're both for doing what they love to do. They're they're
Sure.
they're both are enjoying their craft and their gift of where they're at. You're making the audience laugh. You're doing this part as a comedian and that as a comic, but in the sweetness of it is entertaining your audience. That would be the sweet part about it.
I'll go with that. So what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work or when a comedian gets heckled?
Ooh, you're a tough guy, man. You're tough. Well, I would say, well, you don't want to get too much into your crowd because now your crowd feel like they're a part of your stand up or your show. So you want to be able to definitely engage with your crowd, because comedians, they kind of engage with their crowd. So you want to engage with your crowd, yes, but you don't want to be too engaged, because now your audience feel like they're part of your stand-up, they're part of your show, so you want to be able to pull it back in when you feel you've gotten a little too much in the crowd, and the crowd is feeling like, hey, this is my show too. Pull it back in, wind it back in. Now, a comedian, they're being heckled by someone in the audience. They have a way of kind of like bring the attention back to them. They'll say, hey, I didn't know we came out here to see you, but seem like I'm the funny guy here standing on stage getting paid. I don't know, I'm just throwing some funny stuff. I may not be funny, but sometimes people would tell me, hey, you're funny. And I'd be like, really? I guess
It's a
that would be the comic part of me. We can be funny, but not as a comedian. So yeah, I think, when comedians are being heckled, they have a way of bringing the joke back, back to them. They're kind of clown that heckler in a way where it's not too much offensive, but it's funny where the heckler have to laugh himself, because the comedian came back at him, gave him back a joke and just kind of make him feel like, oh my God, that's funny. I feel kind of like, so I think it can be, that way of, the comedian bringing it back to him. When the heckler is out there, he can say something funny and make the heckler laugh himself, just making him feel a little funny and goofy. So it can go both ways. It can be a funny thing to have the heckler to, engage, because it gives you a chance to come back with something funny at the heckler, and it make the heckler think and laugh, so it can be a great, entertaining part. It all depends on how it's delivered.
All right. So advertising and self-promotion. So who advertises themselves more, the comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast to get the message out today. See you soon.
Ooh, I am going to say all, because, just putting yourself out there. If you have a team, your team is putting your stuff, your promotion, where you're going to be doing your stand-up, where you're going to be doing a comic, or where you're going to be doing your illusions, your magic, and people love magic, because they'd be like, ooh, we like all the illusion of things, even sometimes life could be an illusion. So I would say, everyone is really trying to get their promotion out there, so their fans or people that support someone like them can come out and see what they're doing. So yeah, promote, market. If you don't have a team and you have to do it yourself, it's all about getting your info out there, where you're going to be, so your fans can come and check you out.
All right. So censorship and offense. Does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
Wow. I would think a comedian would embrace it. They would turn it into a joke. They're not gonna hide behind anything. And I guess people I guess would try to censor them into certain things they can say and certain things they can't say. But of course, some comedians just push the envelope, because it's part of their gift. If you take away from the comic or what they're trying to deliver, then it's not really funny, because now you have watered down and sensitized the comedian jokes and what they're bringing forward to their audience to make them laugh. Sometimes a comedian can make you laugh. They can make you think. They can make you reminisce. They make you think about, they'll tell jokes about childhood, and you'll be like, yup, I remember that. Yup, or they'll talk about, some music or something, how people used to dance or whatever. They'll be like, yeah, I remember that, So yeah, I think it goes both ways. Yeah.
All right. So who survives better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
Oh,
Right?
okay. And the canceled culture. Wow. That's tough. I hate when people want to cancel you just for being you. Why? Why must we cancel each other? Because, we live in a world where everybody's so sensitive now. At one time, people weren't so sensitive to certain things, but now you have to watch what you say because you don't want to offend no one or you don't want to do this or that. So, yeah, man, it's all about the comedian, what they're doing and how they're setting that foundation. I do believe they can survive. They can survive through this cancel culture, which is so crazy. I think all three of them can really survive. It all depends on the content they have out there, how strong it is, how the supporters have supported them, their fans, and love what they do. You might have a certain amount of people that will cancel you, and then you may have some that still support you. And I'm gonna just go back to Monique. I'm gonna just say that Monique.
Hmm.
They canceled Monique for a couple of years, but that didn't stop Monique. She was still doing her thing, and her supporters were still supporting her and loving her for what she do. And I think that's how she fought her way out of this cancel culture. She
Right.
never stopped because if they cancel you and you stop, then that's it. But if you
Yep.
keep grinding and keep doing what you do, then they're gonna be like, you know what? She never stopped. Even though she was canceled, she's still doing big things. So they have to just let you shine. They have to bring you back to the forefront and let you shine the way you were shining because you never stop. You might have canceled me, but my fans did not cancel me.
That's right. That's right. I agree with that 100%. So, timing and delivery, is it a science or an art? So, do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
I think art is a timing. You have an art. Once again, we're talking about comedians and comics. You have an art. As a comic, you have an art. You can tell jokes, you make people laugh. As a comedian, you do the same thing. You tell jokes, you make people laugh, you draw your audience into you. So I feel that it's an art. It's really an art. It's an art that when a comedian's on stage, they time everything is time. Their time or well, you got a time, certain time you have to be on stage to give you a certain time right there, and then within that time frame, you have to bring your art to the game. Now you have this certain time. You want to be very artistic to bring your comedy to life because you have a certain point to bring across to your audience to make them laugh. That punchline, you want to be able to make your punchline in time for each joke because you have a certain amount of time on stage to be artistic with your jokes. So
Okay.
I say both ways, man. You have to be, very artistic, and timing is everything. Even when you're delivering your line and acting, me being a writer, producer, and director, and actress, and singer, I wear all those hats.
Nice.
you
And
know,
songwriter? Also songwriter?
Yes, sir. Yes, I
All
write
right.
my own music. So timing is everything, because when we are doing a movie, you have a set time, scheduled time where you have your actors. Okay, you have to be on the set for this amount of time, and then you want to be able to shoot that scene within time because you don't want to go over because now you're paying more money because you have went over your time. So even it's timing is everything, definitely.
Okay. All right. So, laughter versus applause. Are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
Oh God. Both ways again. I'm going to say comedians definitely they want to have jokes out there, that's funny and timeless as well. They want to be able to have their audience laugh. They don't want to leave a show like, dang, I thought my joke was funny and seemed like the audience wasn't all engaged. It wasn't laughing. I thought that was funny. I thought
Right.
it was all good, but then the audience wasn't as funny, engaging as they thought, the audience was. And then the applause, yes, yes. I want to think that I did a good job. Can I get some applause here? I want to think I made you laugh. I made tonight. And the comics the same way when they're being funny. Even if you sometimes like I was saying earlier, if you're friends and you be just saying crazy stuff, not even knowing that you are funny, but they think you're hilarious and they just laugh and you're like, well, I'm glad I can make you laugh. I mean, I didn't think it was funny, but I'm glad you thought it was. I'm glad I can make your day and make you laugh. And it's like that sometimes when you're hanging out with your friends and then maybe they're down and you'll say something heck of funny, but you didn't think it was funny, but it made them laugh and you feel like, oh, good. I'm glad I can make you laugh. I'm glad I can brighten up your day. Hey, So I think it goes both ways, comic and comedians, they want their audience to engage in what they're delivering to them. So they want to make them laugh, they want to make them laugh, want to feel good that they came out to the show and give me a little clap, clap here.
Right. So comedy is commentary. When does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
Oh, oh God, I do believe, and I'm gonna just piggyback off what I said earlier about comedians telling jokes when it comes to the mother and the sister in the church and praying and all that. I think what Black comedians to kind of talk about religion and the pastor and the mother. It's funny because as a someone that's listening to these comedians and there go like for instance, I love when comedians talk about when they were kids, right? And, and maybe their mom was in the choir, right? And they're like sitting there in the pew and they're playing, whatever. And it was like, man, when you look up at the choir and your mom give you that look, you better stop playing in church, And if everybody be like, yep, she give you that look, you better stop it. And then it'd be like, when you in church and, you up there playing and all that, and your mom will give you that pinch, you'd be like, oh my God, that was the worst pinch you can have. And I'm like, pay attention, stop playing. So, and the comedians, the way that they deliver it, it'd be so hilarious where, audience are just cracking up because they can really relate to that time in church. When you would get that look or you would get that pinch, and then you'd be like, yep, I remember that. And, and sometimes, in the sense of that philosophy part of it, they would come and tell jokes about what's going on in this time and era in this world. And they can be funny about it, and just bring that humor to where we at in these time and days to kind of, bring a little life to people, a little joy to people, because we're so focused on what's going on in the world today that we're forgetting to laugh.
That's true. Okay, so we've got a tradition here on the Comedians in Elevators podcast where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. So George Bello was the previous guest, and he's asking, I know, right? Now, he doesn't know you yet, Sandra, but his question for you is, when is comedy inappropriate?
Ooh. Oh God, that's a good one. I think to me, comedy is and I know comedians talk about it a lot, like sexual things, I mean, it can be funny, but to me, I think it goes a little bit too much, like I maybe I shouldn't be saying too much of the sexual comedy content, but sometimes it's just the sexual content of what they say sexually about women, about what they do and all that. Sometimes I'm like, oh, sometimes make me like, oh, a little inappropriate. I don't think we should just go that deep. It's okay, but oh my God, they get a little graphic. I'm like, that's a little too graphic. I don't need to know all that about your sexual business. So I think.
So you see that as it going deep? It's like there's some kind of depth of character when you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, some may find it just funny and hilarious because they can relate to it, but sometimes it can be a little you know, offensive, when it's just a little too graphic. I don't know, maybe to me, I don't know. I mean, I don't care if you throw little sexual jokes in there, but do we have to get real graphic of how you do it? And
well, otherwise you don't know. Maybe it's an education. Okay, last
maybe.
question. Last question. Legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics Tight Five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless? What a
The
stupid
comedian.
question. Okay.
The comedian, I definitely would say, because, you know, I love, um, like Richard Pryor.
Mm-hmm.
His comedy is still remembered even today. Fred Sanford, oh my God. That, back in the day when I first didn't see them, but heard them, they used to have vinyls, the comedians used to record on vinyls back then. And, my friends, we wasn't allowed, but they would sneak into the room, and they would listen to these jokes that was on vinyls at that time. God, am I telling my age?
No, but we all know about the vinyls. There's new vinyls as well, so it doesn't mean anything about age.
Oops.
So, Sandra, where can everybody find you online?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You can, of course, on LinkedIn right here, Sandra Smith. You can catch me on LinkedIn, Sandra Smith on LinkedIn, Facebook, Sandra A. Smith, Instagram, Sandra Smith Films, or Sandra A. Smith, and of course, TikTok, Sandra Smith. So either Sandra A. Smith or Sandra Smith Films. And of course, my YouTube channel is Tiger Eye ENT1. So you can catch me there. You can check out all my work, all my short films. That's on my YouTube channels. I have done music videos, documentaries. You can check out all my work there. I have a new film coming out. We are in post-production right now. It's called Julia Stiles. It's a romantic comedy. And no, it's not about the famous actress Julia Stiles. People always say
Okay.
that. I'm like, no, it's not about that. It's a romantic comedy about a famous talk show host who wakes up one morning and realizes she has fame, fortune, money, everything. She has no love. She has no kids. All she has is her fame and money. So her best friend, who's a producer of a show, I play that role, moi. I suggest we use the show to find her a man. So we are traveling all over looking for a man. And it's all about, trying to find love when you're over 50 and successful and prosperous. It's kind of hard to find that soulmate or that man that will love you, or that woman, perhaps. But of course, being a woman over 50 and very powerful and successful, men get a little intimidated. So, they don't want to
Yeah.
take us.
I understand that. So, Sandra, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone else, please like and subscribe.
Yes.
And we will see you in the next one.
Thank you. God bless.